Welcome to Beyond the Margins, the podcast, the place where we engage, educate, empower, and elevate. I'm your lead learner and host, Dr. Sohn A. Each week, I sit down with some of the brightest minds and dynamic leaders in education to challenge traditional narratives, especially those shaping the experiences of students at the margins. Together, we explore new ways to reimagine schools, classrooms, and learning communities as spaces for growth and transformation. At Beyond the Margins, we center students too often overlooked, sharing the stories, strategies, and ideas that matter most. Voices long pushed aside are brought to the center. Welcome to Beyond the Margins. Did you know that students who report having at least one trusted adult in school are significantly more likely to persist academically and avoid justice system involvement? According to research from Search Institute and the U.S. Department of Education, the presence of caring, consistent adult relationships is one of the strongest protective factors for students facing trauma, instability, or system contact. In fact, studies show that strong adult-student relationships can reduce disciplinary incidents, improve attendance, and increase long-term outcomes, even when academic gaps remain. In other words, before content can land, trust has to exist. And for many students in alternative and carceral spaces, trust isn't assumed. It has to be earned. Today, we are joined by someone I call my forever teacher, and educators whose presence, advocacy, and love shape not only my journey, but the lives of countless students across 4 decades. Dr. Angie Boyd reminds us that education is not transactional, it's relational. It's not just about instruction, it's about restoration. And in spaces shaped by trauma, incarceration, and loss, she shows us what it looks like to teach with courage, humanity, and hope. Please help me welcome Dr. Angie Boyd to Beyond the Margins. Dr. Boyd, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I am excited about today.
Yeah, when I decided to do this podcast, you were one of the very first people that came to mind. I call you my forever teacher because you've been that for me. So I'm very excited to talk to you today.
Great.
Please give us some of your origin story. How did you become this dynamic leader that you are today?
Well, I think that I became an educator by accident. My goal was to become a television news reporter. And I ran off to Virginia State University in 1981. I'm aging myself now. And when I got there, I was majoring in English, but my minor was mass communications. And no one encouraged this little Black girl that she could be a television news reporter. It was just kind of unheard of back then because, it wasn't I wasn't the right color. My pigmentation was a little darker than any of the other young women that were pursuing that. And so after being at Virginia State for 2 years, I transferred to Old Dominion University. I ran into a woman who said, I've been placed here because I'm trying to reach out to African American students to get into education. And I thought, oh, that's not something I'm going to do. I don't want to be a teacher. Why would I want to be a teacher? I want to be a television news reporter. But
Yeah.
because of funding, I did not have the means to fund my own education. I said yes. And so I got into a graduate program, and the main thing was you had to major in education because I was doing English with a minor in mass communications. I fit right in. Went over to Maury High School, tutored some kids and pretty much fell in love with it. And bam, there we go. I became an English teacher at Great Bridge High School in Chesapeake. And then I moved to Deep Creek where I met my favorite student and his mom. Of course, I tell people all the time, his mother was my 7th grade science teacher, and she still mentors me today. And so that's how the 40-year journey began. I've entered my 40th year in education, and I wouldn't change anything for the world.
Thank God for that lady who you bumped into at ODU, because I know you made a world of difference to me and a lot of classmates. You have a legacy at Deep Creek.
Oh,
What
wow.
you didn't say, one of the things I remember most, not just your bubbly spirit and the great way you taught, but you were like the cheer coach my whole time in high school too. So that says a lot about your personality.
Of course, I graduated from Deep Creek High School and I was a cheerleader. When I started teaching at my first school in '86, I became the cheering coach of two dynamic squads. We went to camp. It was just a wonderful experience for a brand new teacher. A lot, but great. And then when I transferred to my home school in 1992, they had an opening there for me. I became the cheer coach there as well. And being involved in students' lives outside of that classroom, it gave me more of a passion to want to be a help other than teaching English. It was almost like teaching life for them. And so there began quite a few other things. I did the Miss Deep Creek pageant as well. I still stay in touch with the young lady who won. She's assistant principal now. So I think that as an educator, it's not isolated to your content area, but you have to expand if you want to be more of a part of the students' lives.
That's very much important. It can't be content only. There has to be that relational piece and some rapport in which we work with. So you've worked in both traditional schools and alternative schools. So my question is, if you were going to define alternative education, how would you define it?
A place to give the last hope that that
Mm,
student needs. When we talk about alternative, our mind, of course, goes in so many directions. Alternative for me is a student who has been detained by the court and the judge is holding their future in their hands. And so, what I do in my facility, I have students who have committed first degree murder or second degree murder. They have some very serious charges. And when they come to me as a teenager, they are so lost because that development of maturity has not really hit them yet. And so I have to deal with the academic piece, but I also have to deal with the emotional and the spiritual piece to pull them back into a place where they see that there is still hope for a future that's even going to consist of incarceration.
That's sometimes difficult because carceral spaces, they're not conducive necessarily for the mindset of education. The the freedom of thought and the freedom of being that's required for meaningful engagement with learning.
That's most definitely true. And since you use that word engagement, your book that you have just written, uh, my teachers are reading it. They found great deal of resource, but also peace in knowing that, we can't teach the students the same way that sometimes we teach traditional students in a traditional building. And so they're gaining a great deal of insight out of that so that they can be more prepared. Yes, they have so many other things on their minds, and academics is not one of them. So what we do when a child comes into me, one of my goals is to see where they are as far as traditional credits are concerned, and then determine how are we going to help this child when they leave, because they leave me regardless of whether they finish their education or not at the age of 18. So
Mhm.
our goal is to get them a GED,
Okay.
which is also difficult, but we had 3 students in the last 3 weeks receive their GED, and we're so excited about that. Yes,
Congratulations. That's a
yes,
big
yes,
deal.
yes. It's a
Yeah.
big deal because that's part of that hope that we're teaching them that,
Mhm.
your body may be incarcerated, but your mind is
Your
still
mind.
free to learn and to
Yeah.
grow and to mature. And so that's one of our goals in the alternative setting when we look at what we offer students and how we can help them with their futures.
And it makes me think more about emotional safety and
Yes,
the role of emotional safety in influencing the willingness to take the academic risks. So how
yes.
are those 2 connected?
I tell our teachers, we're not just content oriented people. Okay. I'm not just the principal. I'm the
Mhm.
counselor. I am the mom. I am sometimes stepping in, as a sibling because we've got a lot of emotional things going on as far as disappointment. is concerned, we also have to deal with trauma. So when we're looking at the emotional aspect, we're looking at the relational and the academic. I'm gonna tell you, it's a big circle, but they connect in some way. They may all be spoken in isolation, but they have to come together collaboratively. And so we try to identify some strategy to bring the three in together so that that child can leave us. They might not leave whole, but their mindset has shifted.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking of a Venn diagram, right? And that sweet spot in the middle where it's obtainable, it's holistic, it's
Yes,
meaningful. Yeah, you might not get 85% of the whole circle, but
right.
what can we do with the time and the environment that we have? How does trauma show up in the classrooms? Now, again, the kids are coming to you with trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Being detained or incarcerated is traumatic. So how
Yes.
does it show up in the classrooms? And how do you enable your staff to deal with it?
First, I try to help the staff to understand we're not in the traditional setting first. I had a teacher, this is my third year as principal, to write a
Mhm.
referral on a student. They wrote a referral on a student. They wrote a referral. You're in jail. You're incarcerated. And I had to bring that teacher in to help her to understand you're not just dealing with a child who has committed a criminal act. You're dealing with right now some trauma that's
Mhm.
never been addressed. So, him putting his head down, him throwing a pencil across the room, he might not be trying to hit you. He could be trying to hit the person that caused the trauma.
Mhm.
We've had therapy. How about that? So, that's one of the things we've had counseling sessions for the staff to understand it's not directed at you. You're just the person in the space at the time. They think the child is being disrespectful. They think that the child is simply ignoring them. They think that the child is, just being defiant and rude and upset because of them.
Mhm.
He said 9 times out of 10, it's the trauma that's never been addressed in a student.
Yeah.
So what we do is we prepare our staff for students who come. They may not have shown up yet, but we've had the training on how to deal with trauma that's never been addressed in a child who comes to us. I have a team teaching model. And so when I have that team teaching model, one teacher could possibly be standing up in the classroom teaching, instructing, and that other teacher may have a student in the corner trying to figure out what's going on today, trying to shift their mind from don't just concentrate on the reason that you came here. Let's talk about how we can bridge a gap to
Mhm.
transformation and not constantly think about my trial date is next month or I've disappointed my parent. And we're real with them. I will tell students, yeah, your mom is disappointed. She's upset. We have to deal with parents who said, I'm not coming to visit. I
Yeah.
don't care right now. We know that they're saying something, but they don't mean that they don't care. Uh, they're just looking at the child is eh, has done something and I have to now bear the fruit or whatever is going to be of what the child did. So we have to be a counselor and we have to be a mom, we have to be a pastor. We have to be so many different things in that classroom, but we have been prepared. I've taken steps to bring someone in to help us to be that person for the child.
With so much going on in these trauma influenced settings, these
Uh-huh.
trauma enforced settings, how do you set the academic expectations with a student population that's so transient?
Oh my goodness. When I was in school, the principal would always say, I have the authority and the power to make decisions for students. When students come in, we always assess them to see where they are. And they'll say, Dr. Boyd, I haven't been in school in a
Mhm.
long time. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I don't want to always ask them, well, how
How
long is
long?
long? How
Because
long
some of
is
the
long?
answers are, it could be fourth grade or fifth grade in many cases. Yeah.
Woo! You are right. And I never thought that I would experience something like that. And then my mind goes to, I want to beat that parent. I can't believe. I
Right.
can't believe that that child has run that home that long and they didn't let them go to school. But it is what it is. My population is small, so they may not have an IEP, but I will allow the special education
Right.
teacher to start going in their background to see what they know. We put an intervention plan together for them. This might sound strange, but every student that comes to me and leaves me, whether it is going to the adult correctional facility or going back to school, they know how to write their name in cursive. I've had over 300 kids since I've been there in the last 3 years. Not one of them told me they knew how to write their name in cursive. Some of them didn't even know how to spell their name. Some of them didn't even know how to spell their middle name. And for those of you who are listening to us today, listen, we have experienced this. So these are just some nuggets that we want to
Yeah.
share with you.
Yeah.
Um, Make sure that your child knows how to write his or her signature. That's something you can practice at home. But I've had parents to just say they just never knew. They didn't know how to spell their middle name.
Yeah.
It's never
Yeah.
been taught to them. And so, in trying to address the academic needs, I'm telling you, Dr. Butts, sometimes we have to start from the beginning.
No, that's very important. So often we try to keep up with pacing guides and rubrics and curriculum
Yes.
data points, but if the gaps are there, the
Hmm.
only thing you can do is stop, scaffold, fill the gaps before you move forward. I wholeheartedly believe that. But what is it about teachers that get us so committed to the pacing guide and going forward regardless if the kids are picking up what we're putting down?
It's the mindset of the teacher and the school system. They're stuck in a system. When I was teaching, oh my goodness, I would just go against the grain, not because I wanted to, but because my student needed that extra push. And,
Mhm.
I was always under the vision of it's better for them to walk out of my classroom knowing, perfecting, and being able to implement and execute five instead of giving them a test of 100 and they didn't master anything. And so I think that a lot of teachers are stuck when they come out of college. We're told this is what to do. That national teacher exam, we
Yeah.
had to pass that in order to get teaching credentials. And then you go into the classroom, you didn't learn nothing on that test has
Nothing.
anything to
Nothing.
do
Yeah.
with building a relationship with a
Yeah.
student, with helping them to know the basics and being able to be self sufficient and
Yeah.
survive out there in that cruel world. And
Yeah.
so I think that the system, the colleges, they're teaching that when you go in, you you know, um, you're going to be considered a master teacher if you get through all these SOLs
Yeah.
or if you
Yeah.
get through that pacing guide. We get to when our kids come to us in the alternative setting, we are just blessed to be able to say, "Oh my God, so and so left." Signing their name. So and so left with a GED. Now, I have gotten students that have come to me on a very academic level. I had a student to come and his attorney said, I need him to have his GED before April the 7th because he was
Mhm.
not going to go back into the school setting. He was a junior. That young man took his GED in 2 days with scores of 160 and above.
Wow.
So
That's pretty good.
we get some
160 is
scholars.
a that's a good score.
That's a great story. Then this past year, I received a student from one of our high schools, had transferred to another, had never set foot in that other school, but he was on track to graduate with his high school diploma. Stayed with me the whole year, did his capsules, everything with me. We rearranged him academically
Mhm.
because he was going to graduate with that high school diploma from Deep Creek. From
Yeah.
Deep Creek.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of people involved. The director of secondary education, the director of counseling, Virginia Department of Education. So we
Mhm.
have maybe, if you have 20 students, you're dealing with at least different issues with every one of those students. And that
Mhm.
young man, because of the way we set him up academically, got the seat time he needed and graduated with his high school diploma. Yeah.
Nice. And
Yeah.
see, that shows the commitment of all parties. You
Yes.
couldn't have done that yourself by yourself at your
No.
school. You needed all of those people at the table working in tandem.
Beyond the Margins, the podcast, will return in a moment.
Your Divine Journey, LLC, is here to walk with you through life's ups and downs. Whether you're seeking therapy, life coaching, support, or personal consultations, we provide a safe, empowering space to heal, grow, and step into your best self. Your journey is unique. Let's make it divine. Connect with us today and start moving forward with clarity, confidence, and peace. www.yourdivinejourneyllc.com.
At the Travel Bureau, we are dedicated to creating bespoke luxury experiences for the discerning traveler, specializing in detail-rich journeys designed with heart and intention. We turn your dream getaway into a beautiful, curated reality. Wherever you're going, the Travel Bureau will get you there in style, comfort, and joy.
If you're teaching urban, alternative, or non-traditional students and wondering why engagement feels harder than ever, the new book by Dr. Sohn A is for you. Unlocking Student Engagement isn't theory. It's real strategies for real classrooms, built on trust, relevance, and relationships. And educators across the country are already responding. Unlocking Student Engagement debuted at #1 in cultural pedagogies, philosophy and social aspects of education, educational professional development, and educational certification and development. Grab your copy today wherever you buy books, and let's change how engagement shows up in our classrooms. Welcome back to Beyond the Margins.
And so, what's one misconception about students in alternative settings that you'll like to dispel?
That they all come from broken homes.
Okay. Yeah.
They don't listen. They come from two-parent homes. They come from homes where parents are making $1 million. They don't sometimes have a criminal background when they come to me. It's the first time. A lot of people stereotype our students in alternative settings. I believe that if maybe they have been in a different environment under different circumstances with I'm not going to say two parents, but one parent that had some direction or one mentor that
Mhm.
grabbed hold to them, their life story would be different.
Students don't stay students, they grow up.
They grow
They
up.
have children of their own. And
Mhm.
many times those children go to the same schools that their parents went to. So the
Yes.
parents have a deficit that wasn't taken care of by the educational system. So they don't always have the means to advocate for their young people. No one advocated for them, and it just becomes cyclical,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about, low income or maybe the
Mhm.
most marginalized people that have the most frequent contact with the penal system.
Yeah, and you're right. It's a revolving door, a vicious cycle that continues to repeat itself. I'm sure we can think of students who went to school or I taught, they were in your class. Some of them have not made it as far as you have. But when you look at their background when they were growing up, you could probably look and say, you know what, they've been headed in that direction all along,
Mhm,
you know,
mhm. Yeah.
or you can say, that kid, I know his mom is really upset because he was not raised like that. We
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
all
Sure.
types of them. And so you can't really pinpoint what it is that caused that child to go in a different direction. Could have been
Yeah.
influence of friends. It could have been, I'm trying to survive on my own. It could be anything. So that misconception that people have, they go, oh, one shoe does not fit all.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. We have students that were college bound before they got caught, still in the car with their friend over the weekend.
Yeah.
And so that kid is still college bound. The only
Yes.
difference between that kid and every other kid is they got caught or they made
Yep.
a dumb decision, but who amongst us hasn't made the dumb decision?
I've seen them go into court with a felony and then come out with a misdemeanor. But I'm gonna tell you what sometimes we don't understand the power of our voice, the
Mhm.
power of our presence, the power of the authority that has been given to us. Now, I truly believe that if we've been set in a place to advocate for kids, we have to advocate. I went into
Mhm.
the court the other day. I have a student, he was going to be turning 23 in a few days. Well, when he went to court, it was going to be a felony and he could not get into the foster futures program if he had
With
a felony.
felony. Yeah.
Yeah, I go in there, and because of a plea on his behalf, I had no idea. The attorney said, "Oh, okay, Dr. Boyd. Okay, let me see what we can do." Goes in, and the Commonwealth attorney comes out. She goes, "Oh, it's you." I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh
Yeah.
Lord, it's me again." By the time that it was all over, they had reduced it to a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
He completed his GED. He was released on his birthday.
Wow.
On his 18th birthday, went down. Now, all of these things had to be if he does this, if he does that, if and he did it because
Mhm.
he did not want his future to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
And I did it because I said, this kid has so much potential. He stole a car
Yeah. Yeah.
and and the witnesses didn't show up. Why did he get prosecuted? Because he told them he stole the car. Nobody saw him take it,
Nobody saw
and the
yeah,
police stopped.
and so what you did in many ways is you saved his future. Education, the opportunity, the advocacy saved his future. And this is the
That's it.
opportunity that, as educators, we have every day. We don't
Yes.
always see the full development of the young person or the people we're charged to teach. But
Hmm.
we have to know that, what did they say? Some plant, some water, some harvest.
Yes. And then there's the increase. So I may not see the seeds you planted in that child. I may not see, the watering through somebody else. And I may not see the increase at the end.
Mhm.
But that commitment, that dedication, and that passion is we did this together
Yeah.
at different times of that child's life. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the heart of being an educator, to
Yes.
pour into an unknown future
Whew,
with a
that's it.
person who might not even want it.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And they grow up at some point. I believe that they're like a sponge. They're soaking it in and they're soaking it up. And oh, I remember what Dr. Butt said. Oh, I remember what so and so said. And it finally starts maturing in them,
Mhm.
but we may not get to see it. But we saw the potential before it
Yeah,
flourished. Whew. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Hey, look, you had my mom as a teacher, and you know Deep Creek and you know Chesapeake. So
Right.
my whole childhood, even today, we'll be out together and someone will say, "Mrs. Butts, Mrs. Butts," and they go to talk about what she said or what she did in their 7th grade biology class in the 80s
Hmm.
and what that did for them or how it
Hmm.
changed them. And being able to have a front row seat to that, I think it really, when I entered the classroom, I knew I wasn't just doing the work for today. I
Right.
knew that because I knew that it rippled through time.
Hmm.
So here's my next question for you, Dr. Angie. Um, when students come to you and they've already had, trauma, multiple ACEs, um, unproductive relationships with school and education,
Mm.
how do you and your team begin to restore trust or
Mm.
build trust back after it's been broken? It happens
Mm.
sometimes.
Well, one of the things that I tell my teachers, don't make a promise and not
Mm,
fulfill it. I'm talking about something as simple as I'll give you the pen at the end of the class.
yeah.
I'm telling you, these kids. I have spoken with kids. Why are you so upset with Miss So and So? She said she was going to bring that paper back, and I ain't seen it in a week. I'm like, oh my God. You know what? Y'all be talking that stuff and you don't follow through with nothing. And I learned from kids, exactly what they need while they're with me. And so I'm talking the simple things. What we do to build trust is first to build a relationship. How do you build that trust? How do you rebuild that trust? I believe that every child has a space that they want to trust somebody.
Mm-hmm.
They want to believe in someone, not just someone, an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell teachers first, let's build a relationship. Let's stop just being the content teacher. Let's make sure that we do some things. Um, Ask them, even though our kids don't leave a unit, but when you
Mm-hmm.
go in, we're doing positive vibe. How are you feeling today? Everybody give me a word that's positive. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
not there, that's where you're trying to get to at the end of the day. And then
Yeah.
when you leave that classroom, ask them how you're feeling, you know, and then um, challenge them to ask you, how are you feeling today, Dr. Boyd? I
Yeah.
mean, they do that. And when you
Yeah.
respond, they know not to be so personal with the teachers, but take that personal question that they've asked you in a different direction without ridiculing them. Um, I was in a class, well, that's none of your business. I told the teacher that's not acceptable. How about that?
Yeah.
There's certain times, certain things that we can and cannot say to students because that's a traumatic plea. Shut up. No, we don't tell
Mm-hmm.
kids to shut up. Uh-uh.
Yeah.
We go
Yeah.
over to their table and we'll sit with them or we'll put a little note. Would you like to talk? There are different ways that we reach different kids,
Yeah.
individual kids. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so when I was in school, all your mama, Dr. Butts, had to say, you don't want me to call Osis. She says my dad's name. I'm like, you I mean, not mama and dad's names or me calling your mom.
Mm-hmm.
Not now. But if you build a relationship with the child,
Yeah.
my student who is leaving me on tomorrow because he will be turning 18. We had his graduation on Friday. I developed such a relationship with his mom. I said, "Don't let me have to call her." Oh, he was straightened up right away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he knew, and I followed through. I had to make a phone call to mom one time. I would go up to the facility on Sundays when I knew visitation was going on. I'd encourage my teachers to do the same so that
Yeah.
they can see you interact with their parent for those
Yeah.
who have a parent. So all of those things, it's one at a time because like I said, eh, one size does not fit all. You have to find what it is in that individual that's going to build the trust,
Yeah.
and that's going to have them to trust you because you followed through.
Yeah. One thing I always find very intriguing is
Mhm,
how little questions we ask students throughout the day. We might ask them like a warm-up question or,
mhm,
what's the answer to number 5?
mhm.
But like personal questions,
Right.
questions about them, about where they are, where their mindset. And we certainly don't like students asking us a lot of questions. But
Right.
one of the first things I learned as a teacher was the quicker I built relationship, the
Mhm.
faster we could go. And
Exactly.
and so can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. When I come in, students will, first I'm gonna say they'll admire, oh, where you get that outfit from? Oh, offline. I shop at different places. I mean,
Mhm.
what is the big deal? You
Yeah.
telling a kid where you
Yeah.
shop. They're not gonna go on that line. They can't go online anyway. So just small things like that.
Yeah.
A kid may say, well, if your son did something like that, I said, well, let me tell you, my son did do something like that. And it was last time he
Mhm.
did something like that. And they were like, what you do? I said, I can't tell you. I might get arrested. You know,
Yeah.
just being open with
A
them.
person, a human.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And I had a teacher that said, so and so asked me, who did I vote for? Really, it's none of his business and whatever. I said, okay. I said, you just lost him.
Yep. That
You,
was an opportunity to teach and to educate and to share perspective.
Exactly. We've been talking about that as well, how we engage in inappropriate conversations. And that's a personal thing. If you'd asked me, I'd have told you who I voted for. And I would have, it's, I'm not afraid to tell you who I voted for because that
Yeah.
starts a conversation. They're going to then ask you, why you vote for that
Wow.
person?
Yeah. And there
Listen,
it is.
and there it is. You know what? You shouldn't be afraid to voice your opinion. It's not going to cause an argument. It's just, and then you also have to know, well, this is who I voted for, but let's get back to history right now. And then they might say that is history. You've got to
Right.
I teach my teachers also how to have some comebacks that are
Yeah.
not going to be demeaning to the
Yeah. Yeah.
student or
Yeah.
embarrassing to them, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, being able to be open and share with them. You made a very good point. How many questions do we really ask students a day?
Yeah.
Not many. And so I'm telling my teachers, I'm sharing with them, I'm saying, I want to encourage you to have more student talk than teacher talk. Yeah.
How does school culture either undermine or support trust building?
Mm. Okay. To support, let's say support. I think when kids are in that alternative setting, they have a mindset about everybody that's in there. You know, they don't know exactly what they've done, but I also think that they're constantly thinking, oh, negative things about that person.
Yeah.
Um, we do a little it's a little exercise every now and then when I get more new students. And I say, I want you to go around the room, well, right at first, tell me a happy time when you were younger and your
Mhm.
age. And so when students start going around the room and they're sharing, some of them may be 16 or 17. They don't go all the way back to when they were 2 and 3 years old.
Mhm.
What that brings is I just got in trouble. I wasn't out there doing these things,
Yeah.
my entire life. And so when we bring that into the classroom setting and we look at culture, I tell detention staff and I tell teacher staff, they haven't been out here gang banging. So what we need to do is we need to create a culture where they can trust each other, but also a culture where they can express themselves of happy times before they were incarcerated,
Yeah.
times that they did do something right before they came to us. And so people think that, our culture, you have to create a culture of support. You have to create a culture of trust. You have to create a better culture for them while they're in there so that when they leave us, they can be, uh, most improved citizens to where they go.
Yeah. You hit on a lot of key points. I've worked in juvenile facilities and adult maximum security prisons.
Whew.
And one practice I've tried to keep in both places is not looking at the offenses.
Mm,
Because as an educator, it should not matter, right?
shouldn't matter.
The job is straightforward. We are the facilitators of passing around knowledge, information, helping people analyze and assess and understand. So
Hmm.
if they're in my seat, I, I'm a human. I may
Yes.
not want to or need to know what brought you here so that I can remain effective as an educator.
And that's very important, Dr. Butts. Very important. I won't know unless their parent shares it with me because we can go in the computer and find out what it is and figure out what it is and whatever. I mean, I've had to talk with a teacher who
Mhm.
listen, I think the student just kind of blurted out that what he was in there for. And the teacher came to me and said, I had a situation, a negative experience with the same thing that this student did
Yeah, it was
with one of
triggering.
my children. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And he didn't know if he could move forward. I said, well, I want you to go home and think about it. I want you to go home and
yeah,
pray about it
yeah,
because this student is not going to be treated any differently than the rest of them. So,
yeah,
we have to really become professional adults at that time.
yeah.
Um,
A
you know,
As they say,
it
ignorance sometimes is bliss.
Yes, yes. And so, we encourage the students not to discuss, but the kid just,
Yeah.
blurted it out. And the
Yeah. Yeah.
teacher
Yeah.
was just really upset because, it hit home. It
Mhm.
hit home. It's just like I didn't sit in. I was one of my students went to court and they were sitting I guess selecting the jurors.
Mm.
And the jury asked a question. Is there anyone here who believes they cannot be objective because of the crime, be objective in making a decision about this person because of
Mhm.
the crime? About 10 or 15 people raised their hand and they told them they were dismissed.
Dismiss. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, wow. And I thought about that when I was talking with the teacher. I said, if you cannot be fair, if you don't believe you can literally work with that student, I'm saying sitting down with him and helping him through, this tough class, then I'm going to have to ask you to maybe think of going to a school because I'm
Yeah.
serious about that. I am serious about that. I feel in my spirit that I can know what you did and still work with you
Yeah.
because I'm committed to the call and I'm committed to advocating for the student regardless of what they've done. And we need more people like that.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
Mhm.
What are 2 or 3 strategies teachers can employ right away tomorrow, Monday morning, to start building trust?
Um, get there early, ask them how their weekend was. I know that they didn't go anywhere, but one student said that. Now, Dr. Boyd, why in the world did Mr. CJ ask us how our weekend was? I said, because he wanted to know. I said, what did you do this weekend? No, you didn't leave, but what did you do? He said,
Yeah. Did
"Oh,
something.
he said he must care about us or something." But every
Mm.
day Mr. CJ goes in. Hey, you guys, what's going on? What anybody do anything great last night? Good last night? Oh, we watched the 49 something, to get
Mhm.
them engaged in conversation.
Yeah.
So we ask questions about their weekend or about their night. I mean, some students have even gone to say, I just couldn't sleep last night because my mom called and said that my dad wasn't feeling well. Then
Mhm.
that's a great conversation that Mr. CJ can, put him over there. I mean, he'll say, would you like to write a note to your dad? Oh, Jesus, my Lord. I mean, we will
Yeah.
give them time in class, in his science class, to
Mhm.
write a short note. And then he'll say, did you mail my letter? I did mail your letter.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, you follow through. So one is asking them about how was your day? How was your night? And then do something out of the ordinary. Okay. Like I said, it's not all about content. When you finish, Sean, I'll let you go ahead and write that letter before the end of class.
Mhm.
Okay. I'll bring you an envelope so you can address it.
Yeah. Give
Follow
a little,
through.
take a little. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And then one of the last things I tell teachers at the end of the week, write a note to your student and tell them how proud you are of them for completing one assignment or
Yeah.
completing all their assignments. You know, um, offer a treat with detention staff's approval. Do something that they didn't get when they were in regular school.
Make sure that they're seen.
Yes, that's it. Now, one of the things, like I say, we get a lot of kids who have not been in school. I have kids to tell me all the time, Dr. Boyd, I never learned this stuff when I was in school. And then
Mm.
I might make a joke and say, well, you weren't in school. And then they start
Yeah.
laughing. He said,
Yeah.
"Oh, you got jokes now. You got jokes now." But
Yeah.
play it off with them. I said, "Well, you know what I meant by that. I'm so glad that you're, doing that."
Mhm.
And another thing I do at the end, I tell them, I said, "I'm gonna give you this little sticky note. I want you to recognize a teacher that really helped you this week. That's it.
That's community
I-
building.
That's
It,
community building. I
it's
want
having the
you to
student
just,
reflect back, not
yep."
just on their experience, but the experience of everyone in the building. That's great.
That's right. And then this is I'm telling you, I'm just very simplistic, to build that next level. Um I will say to the teacher, "Oh, Sean gave this to me to give to you." And they're like, "Wow." I said, "Now don't forget to thank him."
Yeah. Pay it forward.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And so, and then the student will later come back and say, "Thanks, Dr. Boyd." And I'm like, "What are you thanking me for?" "For giving the paper to Miss So-and-so." I said, "Oh, okay, okay." I said, "Well, how do you know I gave it to her?" And I know what the response is going to be because she said thanks.
Thanks. Yeah.
That's it.
Community. Community.
Just small things that
Yeah.
really have an impact. What you say, small things that you're doing to seed, to pour, and to
Hmm.
water these kids.
Yeah. So look, when you look at the educational landscape today, be it in traditional or alternative setting,
Mhm.
what gives you hope?
Whew, that students are responding,
Mhm.
not all at the same time. How about that?
Yeah.
That
Different rates,
that's
different faces, different places. Yeah.
that's right. And the other thing is this: it warms my heart that I may get a resume from someone who says,
Mhm.
"I understand that you're doing a great job and you've got a great teaching staff. I really would like to be considered for a position there."
Yeah. Yeah.
Word is out because guess what? Everybody's not wanting to be a teacher in an alternative setting.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
True.
And how about this? School systems have implemented programs that when a young person is graduating from high school and they want to be a teacher, they guarantee them a job. And so,
Pipeline. A pipeline
yeah,
with purpose.
that's it. And that simply means the system has not is not lost. It's
Yeah.
just identifying the people who know the call is on them and what goes with the call. They're still
Yes.
going to college to become teachers. We did.
We
I
did.
know it's different, but we did.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Dr. Angie Boyd, this has been a great conversation. I knew it
Yeah.
would be. Before I let you go, what's next for you? You've written, I don't know how many books. I know you're always presenting, and you're always doing workshops and professional developments. What should the Beyond the Margins audience be on the lookout for?
I think this has a lot to do with the students, the residents that I get.
Mm,
I'm like, Lord, if somebody uh had helped them in this space, if someone had encouraged them in this space. And so God gave me a book called Restored to Empower. Yes, restored. There's something that's happened in your life that God restored you from to empower others.
uh,
So the book is called Restore to Empower 10 Powerful, Empowered Men that have been redeemed to empower others. So that's going to be coming out in the next few months. I'm also publishing a book from a young, well, I said she's a young lady. She just turned 79. And she said to me one day, "I just feel um, invisible. I feel unseen. I feel
mm,
unheard." I said, "Wow, Elder Pat, that's a book right there." And she looked at me and she said, "And that's what God told me." So I've been helping her with that
mm,
one. It's called Vision in Visibility. So
nice.
I'm excited about those things. And I people ask me, "Well, how long are you going to be over at detention?" I've retired once and came back. And I just feel like my career is so new working with these
Nice.
kids.
Yeah,
They just need an advocate, and I just told the Lord, as long as I can advocate for them, that's going to be my next and my next and my next
got you.
until someone can replace me with the same heart, the same commitment, the same dedication, and the same advocacy.
Well, thank you so much for your commitment to people, to your commitment to
Yes.
education, not only for what you've done for me and many of my classmates and friends, but what you continue to do all the time. You
Well,
always have a home here beyond the margins. We'll
yes.
have you back and we'll continue our conversations.
Most definitely. And thank you, Sean, one of my favorite students, for having me on today.
No problem. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye bye.
All righty. Dr. Angie Boyd showed us that alternative education is not about lowering standards. It's about raising humanity. She reminds us that students are not defined by their charges, their trauma, or their past decisions, but by the possibility that still lives inside of them. She reminds us that education, at its best, is advocacy in action, and that sometimes the smallest acts keeping a promise, asking a question, writing a note can interrupt cycles that systems fail to stop. Here's the truth from beyond the margins. Trust isn't built through policies, pacing guides, or punishment. It's built through presence, follow through, and love in action. When educators see students as human first and refuse to give up on their future, learning becomes an act of liberation. I wonder, what would happen if every school became the place where students were met with consistency instead of suspicion, advocacy instead of assumptions, and where adults believed in their futures even when the system had already written them off?
Next time on Beyond the Margins.
People are scared of change. They don't want change. They're not genuinely interested in change. They actually would prefer things to stay just the same.
Right.
And so someone like myself and the brand that I've developed over these years is well received in spaces where people are serious about change. But when they're not, they won't give me a call because they know better.
Thank you for joining us on Beyond the Margins. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, share this episode, rate and review the show, and let's keep the dialogue going. If you would like to connect, email me at Sean@beyondthemarginsllc.com. That's SOHN at beyondthemarginsllc.com. It's been a pleasure being with you. Until next time, keep teaching, keep learning, keep leading, and keep pushing beyond the margins.